on April 19th, 1994, for running a continued criminal enterprise in violation of 21 U.S.C. 848B, known as the Federal Kingpin statute.
Thanks to the First Step Act, which President Donald Trump signed in December 2018. The legislation provides prisoners with a second chance to reduce sentences and undo the injustices of the war on drugs.
This was our main headquarters right up here in this area right here. We'll cook it down in New York City and we'll bring it back down here to distribute it on this block right here. 26 years later, I'm able to stand on this block to hopefully encourage other young men and women to not take the path I took, the door clicking shut, and you to spending the rest of your life in federal prison. That's what you don't get to see in the movies. The heartaches and the pains, family events. Anytime you lose a family member, like I lost my granddaughter, I lost my brother, I lost my uncle, a cousin, 2 aunts, all while I was incarcerated. And my family, we are real tight. Yeah, that's something that you just don't, but still ain't never get over it, so, yeah.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Blood on the Razor Wire TV, where we bring it to you real and we bring it to you raw. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I got a special guest on today, a dude that I spent a lot of time with in the law library. I know he was sentenced to life. There were days when he thought he'd never get out of prison, but eventually he made it out. TH, tell the people who you are and where you're from.
My name's Tyrone Hines. I'm from Syracuse, New York. Right now, I'm the founder of Man Up program, Syracuse, New York. I'm the executive producer of a movie titled Trust No One.
We're going to definitely talk about your book. We're going to talk about your movie. Any links, I'm going to put them in the description. So I'm asking all my people, man. We got almost 100,000 subscribers. This is a friend of mine, man, that helped many, many people get out of jail. One of the best jailhouse lawyers in the whole system, trying to get his life together, man, had life, and we're going to get into that. But please, man, support this brother, man. Check out his book, buy a book, check out his movie, check out the things that he's got going on. And, he's trying to help the community, and that's a big thing. That's something that we do over here on Blood on the Razor Wire TV. But we're going to get into his story. You can catch the links. I'm going to put some clips up of the movie. But anyway, TH, man, how old were you when you were arrested?
I was like 24, going on 25.
24 years old, going on 25. I think they CCE'd you, Kingpin status, right?
Yes, 21 U.S.C. 848B was carried mandatory life, nothing less.
You had to get life at the age of 24, 25 years old.
Yes.
And eventually you end up sentenced to life in prison, right?
Yes.
What was it like for TH, man, to be sentenced to life in prison, man, at that age?
I mean, losing your freedom, losing your family, losing your friends, just being able to just do what you want to do. It was hard, getting sentenced to mandatory life, being around some of the vicious killers in the world that didn't hesitate about taking someone's life. You go from having fun to a whole different environment, what you're not used to, and you got to try to adapt and try to do the right things so you would never lose your life around some people that don't have no problem with taking your life.
It's wild. Let's talk a little bit about the streets before you ended up in federal prison. What was your life like growing up, man?
Well, I lost my mother at a young age, so that, I had to try to take care of my younger brothers and sisters, that was tough by itself, being raised by a single parent on the rough side of town in Syracuse, New York, in a neighborhood called the Bricks. It was just kind of tough for a young guy growing up back then.
Violence in your neighborhood growing up?
Yes, a lot of violence. A lot of violence, a lot of, just a lot of, the everyday struggle growing up in the projects.
I know a lot about you, a lot about your case, a lot about you as a person, because like I said, I spent many years with you. You end up with a life sentence, man. You walk into federal prison. What is the prison that you went to first?
I went to Atlanta Federal Prison, USP.
What was it like in Atlanta to get there?
Man, it was, I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of scary because it was something new. You thinking you going into a jail where you thinking, you got the cells and you got a controlled environment, but it was the opposite. So when I walk in the unit, they got big dice games, music blasting, guys walking around with expensive watches, gold chain. So that right there was something different, and it wasn't normal to me thinking that okay, jail was just like the streets, right? But it was dangerous. It was dangerous. That environment was dangerous because they let everybody do what they wanted to do. So that right there was kind of like it was kind of scary, because I knew that only thing they wasn't doing in Atlanta was driving cars in there, but everything else they had access to. So that makes the situation even more dangerous.
Atlanta has always been a dangerous prison. Recently, I think they found a gun over there. They started moving everybody out, all kinds of cell phones. You were there, I'm not sure, but I think you might have been there when John Powers was there. He was also from Syracuse, white dude, when the ABs killed the Chinese dude. Were you there then?
No, I wasn't there then. When just before I got there, a correction officer had just got killed. So it was right off the bat, right off the bus, it was locked down.
Was there violence going on when you got there, even though people are playing dice, getting money? What type of violence was going on?
I mean, when I tell people the abnormal became the normal, meaning that, to see somebody get stabbed 20 or 30 times, see someone get killed, it became the normal. Down in Atlanta, it wiped the blood up and opened right back up sometimes. And so a lot of things that on the outside in the free world that will be abnormal, those things became normal. And in that environment, it's just like, okay, someone just lost their life, but who cares? You know what I mean? Back to normal. And, I didn't understand that.
Did you witness anybody get viciously or brutally assaulted in Atlanta? Did you ever see it yourself?
Yeah, yes. You see it, just like, you got some people that just didn't care. Like when they wanted to get their man, you know, they didn't care who was around, where you was at, chow hall, the gym, the rec yard. It's going down. So, you seen many attacks, seen many violent attacks.
What was one of the worst things you've seen that kind of stuck in your mind?
Well, when I was in Lewisburg, seeing a group of I don't know if they I know they were Spanish, but to see them get beat in the head with baseball bats and bocce balls and weights and stuff like that, that was to see them all swollen and everything, that was probably one of the vicious ones. I mean, you heard stories of vicious one, but that's the vicious one stuck out with me. Some of those guys I thought wasn't gonna make it.
Who were they beefing with? Each other? Another group?
But they was beefing with each other. They was beefing with the DC car.
So it was the DC car and the Spanish dudes?
Yeah, yes. I think somebody bumped into somebody and then say, "Excuse me," and you know how that is, Chad. Sometimes in prison, they're looking for a reason to, put in work or, to relieve their stress or whatever.
That's what people don't understand. I mean, something as small as bumping into someone and not saying excuse me results in dudes almost losing their lives. A lot of good men ended up hurt, right?
All the time, all because of sometimes small things, sometimes a lack of communication, or sometimes people not knowing the whole facts of a situation. And most of the times, guys don't care if they homeboys are wrong. They riding with them, and that makes the situation worse sometimes. Like Chad, sometimes if you know if somebody wrong, you want to try to straighten it out so it won't happen again. Because in prison, you meet some good guys that you have a lot of respect for all over the world. And you don't want someone coming off the bus that don't know what's going on or just really on some joke time to cause you to lose respect with some mans that you've been bidding with for 10 or 15 years. And that happens all the time.
All the time. And for people that don't know, Atlanta, when you were in Atlanta, when you were in Lewisburg, those were the most dangerous prisons in the federal prison system at that time. Correct?
Correct. Correct. And the only thing between Atlanta and Lewisburg, like I say, once I arrived in Lewisburg, it was a different type of fear, right? Because people talk about how it looked gloomy over the prison. People talk about how the red top was named after because there was so much blood shed in that area, right? But what Lewisburg did for me, it got me focused. Atlanta, I wasn't focused in Atlanta because Atlanta was just like the streets. So it was a lot of distractions. But Lewisburg was dangerous in a whole different way, right? Where it allowed me to really get focused and begin to start my fight for my freedom because I didn't want to stay in there like that, Chad.
I mean, like I said, me and you spent many, many years together at the same prison in the law library. You had that first computer. As soon as people walked in, they knew who TH was, right?
Yeah.
People told me, man, when I was on my way there, yo, man, if you go to the law library, there's a dude named TH over there, man. He's like that. And I know you helped free a lot of good brothers, haven't you?
Yes, yes. And I think I got my blessings, and I think that kept me out of a lot of stuff too, Chad. Because I'm not gonna say nothing never happened in the law library, but the library was somewhere that really don't too much stuff go down in Raybrook Library. People was in there fighting for their freedom. People was in there trying to get home. So, you wanted to take the other mess and go somewhere else with it. And the library kept me focused. It kept me on track, and it kept me wanting to help dudes like myself. And it allowed me to really become friends with guys like you who was fighting for your freedom.
Do you remember Tall Ock, that used to be in the law library every day?
Yes.
You probably don't know, but I won his case like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So we ended up getting a reduction, so he's going home in 3 years. But, the law library, let me ask you this, because we're in Raybrook, right? There's some violence in Raybrook. It wasn't like a place where there wasn't violence. Things happened, right?
Yes.
Do you remember the night when the Nietas were fighting their own dude and they were throwing they had a pottery class back there. They were throwing pots at each other and bowls. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
And some of the dudes ran in the law library while we were in there trying to hide. The shot caller for the Nietas, the bald head dude, was real brolic. Do you remember that night?
Yeah, I remember that.
Go ahead.
Sometimes, every now and then something might carry over into the law library, but the library for the most part was a good place for us, Chad.
It definitely was a good place. Like I said, you've seen a lot of violence. You walked in there young. Do you think it affected you, TH, some of the things that you've seen? Did it affect you mentally a little bit?
I would be lying if I say it didn't. Anytime you see a man get stabbed 20 or 30 times, anytime you hear about a man losing his life, anytime you run a lot of men who've been taken away from their families and their friends, and anytime you run some men who may never see daylight again, it have to affect you, Chad. And I think that what allowed people like me and you to become so cool because we both had a goal to not only help people, but also to get out of that environment because that environment is not for nobody.
Definitely not. So let me ask you this. You said it kind of affected you a little bit. You ever see someone get brutalized and you feel bad for them? Like when they're locked down, like, damn, man, that dude was all right dude and got brutalized.
All the time, man. All the time, Chad. Because, like I say, sometimes once you get thrown in prison, you can come to prison with 4 or 5 years and never make it home. You could come to prison one way and never leave the same. So anytime you see anyone get assaulted, whether they right or wrong, it's you always feel bad, because you know how it is, Chad. If you weak in prison or you by yourself or you ain't in no car, you're already outnumbered. You're already against the odds. And and I don't care how bad you is, some of those cars is 200, 300, 400 deep. Ain't no win.
Who do you think was the most dangerous car in federal prison?
It depends on what prison you was in. It could be the Mexicans, it could be the DC car. Sometimes it could be Philly. Sometimes it could be New York. It all depends on what prison you in. Sometimes the Vice Lord, the GDs, you know.
Do you remember? I mean, you had a homeboy from Syracuse, right? The big,
Yes.
big dude. What the hell was his name, man? I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Big Earl?
Not Earl. No, not Earl.
Oh, Big Reese.
Not Big Reese, man. The ballhead dude, man.
Oh, Bisco.
Beast. Yeah, okay. So do you remember the time when I think it was the Spanish brothers from New York were beefing with the G27 dudes and Beast was out there, Lex was out there, and it was just like, you might have been in the law library. I was actually on the yard when this happened. But I mean, that was like a mini riot over there.
Yeah, I heard about that, Chad. Most of the time, Chad and Raybook, most of the time when something went down, I was in the library. So I didn't really see firsthand a lot of those big events like that because I was in the library, but you always hear about it, and you always felt it from the lockdowns. But that was a serious incident.
Definitely was a serious incident. I mean, people were running, trying to climb the fence. I mean, it got wild in Raybrook at times. What was it like to leave a USP and they say, hey, you made it to an FCI. You're going to an FCI. What was that feeling like?
It was like, to get from now I can tell you that, Chad, if you get sentenced and you be behind the wall and then you get the chance to go to the FCI, it's a big difference. It's a big difference because you're able to see some of the things that you couldn't see while you was behind the wall. But at the same time, going to a FCI from a penitentiary, you're already running into people who got FCI mentality, and you come in with the USP mentality. So sometimes you bump heads because you in an FCI, but you still carrying yourself like you in a USP penitentiary. So sometimes you find people always clashing or bumping heads with each other because of that transition. Sometimes that transition ain't always smooth, but for me, I was glad to get out of the USP to the FCI.
Go ahead.
It just mean I was a step closer to going home.
I want to talk about this, right? Because, we can talk about the violence and all of that stuff, but I want to talk about the reality of prison too. When I left the USP, I went to Raybrook, and I finally was close to home. I wasn't in the Midwest. I wasn't 8-9 hours away. And I remember walking around the yard that first day, and I smelled the pine trees, right? And it hit me, man. And even now, it makes me feel a little emotional. And I was like, damn, I'm close to home. I hadn't smelled a pine tree in so long, and I was like, so close, but yet so far away. I mean, I had a 40-year sentence, pretty much a life sentence. I know you had life. Being that you're from Syracuse, you're from that area, and you go to Raybrook, did it hurt you a little bit to be so close to home, knowing that you still had a life sentence, but you were close to your family?
I mean, it had its ups and downs, right? The one thing about Raybrook, I got a chance to really be around a lot of guys that I knew their families. So it was better in that way to be able to talk to them about stories, about things that happened while I've been gone, right? But like you say, you're so close. You're so close, but yet you're so far, and only a fence is separating you. But at the same time, I felt that I was in a different ring, like a different arena, you know what I mean? And by me being able to really come to the FCI, which still had violence, which still had people that really can take your life in a split second, but it also had its advantages of being able to go and do things. And whenever I wasn't in the law library, I was able to talk to some guys from Syracuse. You know what I mean? Younger guys, and I think that helped too. Being able to walk the track with them for hours, talking, having a good time. So it had its advantages and disadvantages, Jack.
I mean, I feel the same way. I was happy to get out of the penitentiary and go to an FCI. It hurt me a little bit to be close to home with all that time. TH, how much time did you do straight?
I did 26 years straight.
26 years straight in prison for a nonviolent drug crime.
Yes.
So there's some youngsters out there, man, that are out there getting money. They might, scroll through YouTube and they see Blood on the Razor Wire TV and they tune in. You lost 26 years of your life. You made a bunch of money in the street. You were on some kingpin status. We can see it in your pictures. We know it from your case. Kingpin, get a life sentence, 26 years. Would you give it all back in order to have your life back?
Quickly. Because Chad, like, one thing about being out now, you appreciate everyone. You appreciate your family. You appreciate your friends. You appreciate just being able to walk without looking behind your back. You appreciate so much things that you took for granted the first time around, and a lot of people want the kingpin status, but they don't want the time to come with it, So, you want the money, you want the glory, but I'm telling you now, you don't want the time that come with it, and back then, when they say mandatory life, the feds meaning that mandatory life. It just happened. Some laws happened to change. We was fighting for our case, and we just happened to be on that right track at the right time. You know what I mean, Chad? But
I know exactly what you mean. If it wasn't for Trump and the First Step Act and crack laws changing, and that First Step Act did a lot for a lot of people. Some people might not want to hear it or say it, but you know what? I say it all the time. I may not have supported a lot of stuff that Trump did, but his criminal justice stuff, I mean, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be out here on YouTube talking to you right now.
You're right about that, Chad. We'll be in the law library right now, talking about cases,
Go ahead. I'm listening.
And like I say, Chad, like the drugs and the money, you can make more money right now legally than any money you made illegally in the drug game. That's the way I feel right now.
I want to ask you this because I think the viewers are going to want to know. After 26 years in prison, you walk out. Did you cry?
Man, I cried before I walked out, Chad, like, some people might think that it's weak to cry, but it's many nights I cried in my cell, right? I cried when I left because, you talking about at a time that, even though you had hope that you was going to get out, but you still knew it was a slight chance that you might not get out and you might die in prison. So to be able to walk free again, you got to bring tears to your eyes. It got to, you overwhelmed, you overjoyed, Chad? So.
Oh, I know. I mean, I don't, when I used to be in that law library and I was doing that Holloway motion and I was talking about Judge Gleason, there were people, man, sometimes that would talk behind my back, right? And, people would backbite me. They'd backbite you. And, dudes that told me, man, other dudes like, man, dude's crazy as hell. They used to think I was crazy. But I ended up writing that first compassionate release motion, man, for Conrado Can 2. And after that, thousands and thousands of people got out of jail. But there were times when dudes were laughing at me in the law library when I was talking that stuff. You were there with me. And I was telling people, this is it. This is the way out. I'm going to figure it out. And eventually I did figure it out, right? And because of it, of course, the lawyers and all these other people would have figured it out eventually too. Yeah. And I had wrote them first articles in the Criminal Legal News, Prisoners Legal News. But it wasn't about me, man. It was about me, but it was also about other people, man. Yeah. Getting other people out of prison. And that's something that you've done. You've got a lot of people out of prison. And some of the dudes that taught you are, some of the best jailhouse lawyers ever in the federal prison system. Mika, Tommy Walker. Is that where you learned the law?
Yes, Mika, Michael Norwood, known as Mika, and Tommy Walker, they both had a major impact in teaching me law. Tommy Walker had a more hands-on with me than Mika did. Mika was, it was like you with a real lawyer. You had to sit down with him, make appointments, but Tommy Walker had a hands-on more approach with me. And to believe it or not, Chad, he taught me the basics, but my issue that I've been fighting for all those years, I found that issue one day when we was in the library in Lewisburg, and when we was filing my 2255, I showed that case to Tommy Walker. I was like, man, we got to put this in my 2255, right? And it was an appeals court case out of the Second Circuit, but I was still telling him I had did enough research on my own to know that I kept saying, how did I get mandatory life when I pled guilty? So that's when I learned that 848B and 848A were separate offenses. But all the other circuits were saying they was the same offense, except for the Second Circuit. So, Chad, that's what my hope began at. That's what my hope first started.
I remember these conversations, and eventually you win. But I want people to understand it took you years and years of fighting, knowing that you were right, you were legally right, and you couldn't get relief.
And that's what you got. That's what we want to tell the young people that one thing about the federal system, you can be right, and yet still serve the rest of your life or serve many years, and you stand on rightfully grounds.
I know it happens. There's plenty of good men in prison that I say it all the time. Dudes that deserve to get out of prison more than I deserve to get out of prison. Yet they're still sitting in prison, and they may never get out. They may die there. They may leave in a body bag, man. And it's sad because we've been around some, good dudes that we know that are probably never getting out.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, man, you changed your life, and the judge gave you a chance. Same thing like with my judge. He went out on a limb. He told me, I went to his chambers. I was there 90 days ago, sitting in the back of the courtroom with my judge, my wife, and my kids. And he said, look, I gave you a chance, man. You told me you weren't going to disappoint me. Don't disappoint me. And I think you're in the same boat. You had a judge that finally believed in you. And you had told me earlier on the phone that you didn't want to ever disappoint him, right?
No, never. When a judge go against the prosecutor's recommendation to leave you in jail, to let you die in prison, and he take factors in consideration, and those factors was being in prison for 26 years, not getting no incident reports, getting my GED, taking programs, staying out of trouble, and at the same time fighting for your freedom, even though you got a mandatory life sentence. So to stay focused under those circumstances, Chad, any judge will start feeling for you, if you're doing the right thing for 26 years.
But something that I want people to know about you, like I said, I was in there with you every day, man, 10, 12 hours a day. You had a vision from prison, though. You started helping people. You guys put a program together. I think it was the Man Up program. You were teaching it in prison. You were helping youngsters, man, try to make the right choices. But you also had your books you were working on, and I remember you telling me, man, I'm gonna be out there doing some movies, and I remember you in the hobby craft back there one day, and I'm telling you, I'm talking to you. You're like, man, this is right here. This is it. You were having someone paint the picture of your book or something, right?
Yep. And Chad, for the youngsters that's out, hopefully they don't end up in prison. But the ones that's in prison, one of the key components of being successful once you leave, you have to start while you're in prison. So while I was in prison, not only did I write 4 books, I wrote the movie script, right? I learned law. I started the Stop the Violence movement in Syracuse, right? I had a few community events, but those steps started while I was in prison. And when people look at what I'm doing now, that didn't just happen once I got released. I was working on all of these things right now, and we just completed a movie called Trust No One based on one of my books that I wrote while I was in prison. So that's a good example of me having mandatory life, but I still was not miserable. I still was not, carrying myself mad, just getting in trouble. I still knew I had to prepare myself for when that right time come, and that's what it was. And to anybody listening, whether you in or out. It's two type of people: a person that walk and a person that walk with purpose. You always want to try to walk with a purpose. So what me and you was doing in prison, Chad, we was walking with a purpose, and more people walk with a purpose, more good results will happen for them.
No doubt. So I know you talked a little bit about this movie. I mean, is the movie out? Is there a way to find it? Can people watch it? I mean, is it coming?
Well, we in the editing process. We completed filming, and last month, December 16th, they showed a 2-minute clip of my movie down at the Landmark Theater, right? That's downtown Syracuse. They showed a promotional clip. So that just lets you know how far we came, to have your movie showed on a big screen. But, a guy releasing a video tomorrow of a song that he recorded, and he using some of the movie clips just to see people in Syracuse get behind me with this movie project, and just to see some of these young people acting without taking no acting classes and giving it all is a prime example of how you can come out and be successful and change people's lives and give them something to look forward to, Chad.
I'm gonna put a clip up in the beginning of the movie. I know you sent me a couple clips, or at the end of this video. I mean, I want people to check it out, and I want people to check out your books, man. What about your books? Where can they find your books at?
Well, since I've been home, Chad, I done ordered the books 3 to 4 times, right? But like I said, I took a lot of time filming this movie. So now that the movie done, I'll be able to have some more books for sale soon. The filming the movie took a lot of time.
Well, I'm definitely going to promote your stuff. I want people to check it out and check out your stuff. Is your book's not on Amazon yet?
No, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna do that real soon too, Chad.
Okay.
Like doing 26 years and it's not no excuse. You come out here and you thinking that, okay, I'm out, everything, but you try to do so many things, not to catch up, but just getting your life straight. And sometimes, sometimes it can be too much, Chad. So I have to take one day at a time and one step at a time to try to complete some of these things. But like I say, the movie is done now, so that'll free up a lot of time to do some other things.
Well, that's what's up. I want people to check you out on Facebook, and I know your books will be out, and they'll be able to purchase some books from you and all of that. I know you also dealt with a tragedy before we get ready to go. I think your granddaughter, something happened to your granddaughter,
Yes,
right?
my granddaughter Tanaya. Yeah, yes, yeah. When I was in jail, she passed away, and things like that, Chad, you never could get over while you're in prison. And that's another thing about being in prison. You lose family, you lose friends, but to lose your granddaughter at a young age, it kind of like, it kind of like, it's just no words can explain.
TH, how old was she?
She was only 3 years old.
And how did that happen?
She had like a tumor, brain tumor on the side of her head. Yeah.
Sorry to hear that, man. I remember seeing some stuff on your Facebook page and stuff like that. So, TH, man, I want people to know, man, you're one of the best dudes I ever met in prison, man. Intelligent brother, cared about other people, had compassion, serious when you needed to be. And you know what, man, you got out of prison. You told me something today like, Chad, you know what? I'm just grateful to be free, man. I just appreciate everything. And that hit me, man, and it reminded me to not take this, don't take this lightly, man, because we almost died in prison. We were supposed to die in prison, and we got a second chance. And through that second chance, maybe we can educate some people. Maybe we could show some young kids that are on the wrong path. They might not all listen. They might listen, but they might not, like they say, you can walk the horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. But somebody might listen. Somebody might hear the message and say, you know what? I don't want to be a kingpin. Yeah, I want everything that comes with it except for the consequences, so I probably should make a different choice. If you had a message today to give to a youngster, right? I know you got that Man Up program. What would be your message, brother?
My message to each youngster, no matter who you is, before you go left, give yourself a chance, Put yourself in a position to create opportunities for yourself. Try first, Just don't go left, but just don't give up, right? Because once you're in a position like me and Chad was, then you're going to want to listen. And sometimes it's too late, you know. Sometimes it comes at the cost of many years. But you don't have to end up in the situation that me and Chad ended up in if you just give yourself a chance, try to get much as education as you can, right? And just appreciate life. Enjoy life, have fun, and try to always be respectful to people, no matter who it may be. And you will see the good results come with giving yourself a chance, a fair chance.
Hey, man, you know, I definitely appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, man, sharing your message. Like I said, man, very good dude. I want to see you succeed, man, and you deserve to succeed. You helped a lot of people get their lives back and, you know, get their sentences reduced. You're out here giving back to the community. You're organizing people. You know, you're teaching, you know, giving a message to the youngsters. So I appreciate personally the work that you're doing. And again, man, I appreciate you for coming on. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
Yeah, I want to tell you, Chad, sometime when me and you was in prison, you know, even though we had a lot of respect for each other, but sometimes we don't get to tell each other we love each other, man. You know, we was in there fighting hard. We was in there, you know, doing the best we could under those circumstances. But being that we both is out now, we both can honestly say that, you know, we got a lot of respect and love for each other, you know, and that came because we had the same common goals, you know, we had the same type of principles, you know what I mean? And we all want to see other people do good and get home to their families. And I think that allows us to have a different type of love for each other, you know, the type of love that you inviting me on your show, you know, and I appreciate that, Chad.
Well, man, listen, I got nothing but love for you and respect for you, always have, man. So
Okay.
I'm going to tell people, man, if you like what we're doing and you think, you know, there's a youngster out there that needs to hear the message, share the video, check out this brother's stuff. I'm going to put some links in the description. I appreciate everybody, man. Blood on the Razor Wire TV with respect. Until tomorrow, we're out.